We have Zoe in the chat who will be confirming whether it's working and monitoring the comments. Slowly setting up. It looks like we are live on Facebook. Amazing. So welcome everyone to our virtual town hall. We host those town halls every couple of weeks on different topics from freedom to climate to women's rights. And we are thrilled to be joined today by Wai Wai Nu, who's a Burmese activist who's advocating for democracy, for the rights and equality of all people in Myanmar. And today's event, we really want to focus it on what's happening in Myanmar, especially because today marks the 100th day since the coup. And so we wanted to hear from her about what is the situation, how world leaders can do more to support the people, and what activists all across the world like ourselves can do and should do in the first place. So thank you for joining us. Before we get started with all of our many questions, we just wanted to let you know, please comment and send us all of your questions. We'll try to monitor and share them around as you are asking them. So to get started, I wanted to ask you something very basic. It's 100 days since the coup. Can you recap for us what happened?
Sure, Colombo. It's an honor to be here with you guys too. So on the 1st of February, 2021, this year, the military in Myanmar staged a coup. And since then, the public has been engaging with the nonviolent civil disobedience movement and street protests against the military coup, to the many other forms of protests against the military, including light a strike and pot and bands, banging, and the Tamil revolutions or Sarong revolutions, and many forms of creative ways of protesting against the military coup. And since the February 1st, the military has actually arrested major political leaders and politicians, as well as the activists, students, young people, civil servants who joined civil disobedience movement, and influencers, celebrities, whoever opposes against the military coup. So within this 100-day, they have actually murdered at least 783 people, including children, children, and mostly youth and children underage. The youngest that they have killed was 6 years old, and the military has detained over 4,000 people, and the killing and the arrest and the violence attack against the people continue every day and night. But the protesters are determined to take down the military once and for all. And the civil disobedience movement still ongoing. The civil servants disengage from their duties. And the politicians has winning political parliamentarians and politicians has set up national unity government and recently formed People Defense Force. So that's the latest and the recap. But yet the life of the people in Myanmar are extremely terrifying. No one is safe. Anyone can be arrested or killed anytime without reason, and you can be arrested, abducted, and given return the dead body the next day. Even last weekend, a poet called Kathy was taken, and then next day his dead body was returned to his family. And that is the situations right now.
Thank you so much, Wai Wai, for this very clear and sad account of the situation in Myanmar. My immediate question would be, from your perspective as an activist from the country, how would you assess, and can you tell us a bit more about the international community response to to this situation, both in from the UN perspective as an international organization, but also single states across the planet? Do you think enough? Surely enough has not been done, but do you think that some steps have been taken, or we are at ground zero for them on this topic?
International community has been extremely slow. The US has taken some initiative and imposed some sanctions against military and military businesses. The UK and a few other countries has followed some steps, but that is not enough given the brutal military's attitude and behavior, as well as the past crimes that they have committed against the Rohingya and other ethnic minorities. This is not a normal coup. This is a coup led by the genocidal military. So right now, the UN has been extremely slow. The UN security has not been adopted any resolutions. There are one statement and one presidential press statement and presidential statement by the UN Security Council after a few meetings, but they were very weak. They were utterly weak. And these responses will not help change the military behavior. We've been calling the international community to have a coordinated response to the situations and to hold the military leaders accountable for their past crimes and ongoing crimes against humanity, past crimes of genocide and war crimes. And that is the only way that we can take down the military. Without holding these military leaders accountable for their crimes, we might not be able to return to democracy anytime soon. So that is why we're calling the UN Security Council to adopt the resolutions that include global arms embargo and the economic sanctions against the military and military leaders, as well as a referral of the situations to the International Criminal Court, and also countries to coordinate among each other to have a broader multinational, multilateral response to the situations, so that we may be able to save some lives, and we may be able to prevent recurrence of their crimes like genocide. And however, the ASEAN has last week on 25th April, ASEAN organized a meeting, a summit on Myanmar, and they come up with 5 consensus for the military to follow, but military has not been implementing or following any of these consensus, 5-point consensus or recommendations. And the world is putting all their expectations to the ASEAN, and as if ASEAN is going to address Myanmar situations magically, but it is not going to happen.
Yeah, I think I saw today that even the Secretary General spokesperson said that basically, Myanmar should follow ASEAN, but considering the fact that even the UN hasn't managed to issue a strong statement or any type of actions, it's just really playing ball so that they don't have to take the responsibility. Totally. It's been insane to see. Totally. Do you think that this is due, I have so many questions also, I see questions popping up, but do you think that this is due to the fact that China would be vetoing any strong actions against the military leaders?
I think, China's interests will be better off if it is under democracy and stable political systems, and which assured rights of the people. And also, China will have more support from the public under the democracy. So, for their own interests, I think China is not going to veto, or China might not be opposing actions by the UN Security Council as it was before. I think right now with the military coup, their interests are under attack as well in Myanmar, and I think they know it. As far as I'm hearing from from the UN discussions, China might not be the oppositions, or China might not be the strongest oppositions in this case. So what we need is the leadership from the UK and as a pen holder and the US. So UK can actually initiate resolutions as they are pen holder at the UN Security Council.
That makes a lot of sense. We're also advocating right now for the creation of a coalition of democracies, so a League of Democracies, especially ahead of the G7 that is happening here in the UK in June, for democracies to come together and coordinate responses to what, for example, what's happening in Myanmar, but not only. There's links with what's happening in Hong Kong, with what's happening in Venezuela, with what's happening in Belarus, and so on. So we're very much on the same page. I see a question in the Q&A on Zoom asking you about how people manage to coordinate, because this person is saying, I heard that the internet in Myanmar is constantly blackout during the protests. How did the protester communicate to the outside world?
So do you remember we have several past uprisings in the past in Myanmar? We have saffron revolutions in 2007. We have biggest 1988 uprising, student uprisings. In those days, we didn't have internet, right? So people finds a way to communicate each other. Internet is a plus, an advantage, but it's not a must. However, people today are more creative, more intelligent, so they are navigating all these obstacles and finding ways or managing to get through it, to get the internet by using VPN or by having like foreign SIM cards and so on, and they are communicating through phone calls, so yeah, I mean, even I have been communicating with many of our colleagues constantly, day and night. It's not as easy as before with the internet shutdown, internet restrictions, as well as the banning the social media. It's not easy, but we need to find other ways to communicate.
Absolutely, Wei Wei, and I think what the protesters are doing is very brave. I want to draw attention on another question that we received in the chat here, and this is about basically your family history, your father as an activist. And I would like to broaden this question. I think you have a very interesting story, so I think that would be very interesting to hear how you end up being an activist, why, and just divert 1 second from the current events and dig for a minute in the past, if you don't mind.
Sorry, could you repeat your questions again?
Yes, if you can tell us a bit about how you became an activist and why, basically.
Okay, that's a great question. I get to ask again a lot. So, I grew up under military dictatorship. I grew up knowing what the military dictatorship looked like. I remember we were not even allowed to listen foreign radio channels like BBC or BOA or RFA Burmese channels, or we were not allowed to listen the radios loudly, and we were not allowed to talk about politics or even use the name, the word democracy, or the name the Aung San Suu Kyi. you can be punished or put in prison. So that was the environment that I grew up, and I grew up witnessing many people, among my relatives or community, or overall put in prison for no reasons. Even my father was arrested when I was very, very young, like 6 years old. And and that was the environment I grew up. So that is definitely something defined me as well. But at the same time, when I was 18 years old as a college student, um, at the age of 18, I was arrested along with my father, my mom, my sister, and my brother because of my father's political activism, democracy, involving in democracy movement. He was an elected parliamentarian in 1990 elections. He was he quite actively and deeply involved in the democracy movement, including becoming an ally and a leader in the committee, and in those days called Committee Representing People Parliament, CRPP, something like CRPH today. So he was part of the 18 members in that committee, and as thus the military has put him and his family in the prison. That was one of the main reasons. At the same time, they targeted us as a family because we are Rohingya. And so I had to spend 7 years in the prison, and that's where I learned everything about the political systems, the corrupt political systems, dictatorships, corrupt economy, judiciary, and life of the daily life of the people, how people become victims of the systems and end up being jailed without committing any major crimes, and all of this tragedy and suffering that I have heard and listened and understood. And since then, I dedicated to change the systems, the military dictatorships, to democracy. So when I was released from jail in 2012, after 7 years of imprisonment, I suddenly, I immediately become, I didn't wait one day, I become a youth activist promoting democracy. Yeah, that's, and since then I've been working with thousands of youth in Myanmar, providing civic and political education to the leadership trainings in promoting democratic values and cultures, and understanding awareness about the knowledge about the democracy itself, aside my other work on human rights, documentations and advocacy, as well as peace building.
That's, thank you for sharing this. And congratulations for all of your work. It's extremely impressive. I wanted to ask you, because for the people who, for the international audience that hasn't followed a lot what's been happening in Myanmar, not just over the last 100 days, but over the last years and decades, where, there's been, the Burmese people have fought so hard for democracy. And then we saw, I think a couple of years ago, the acts of genocide happening against Rohingya people, and now this coup. Can you maybe link a bit, what you've seen happening against Rohingya people with the actions of the military leaders now, to explain the sequence of events to people? I think it's something a lot of people are not aware of at this stage.
Yeah. So Burmese people, people in Myanmar, we never had a free, like a full democracy or freedom in Myanmar since independence from British 1948. We had about 10 years, 12 years of parliament democracy system, but it was like after the independence. That parliamentary democracy system was maybe one of the freest period of our country's history post independence. But it was like in a very chaotic conditions country was. Since 1962, the military staged a coup, the military leaders at that time called General Ne Win. Since then, the country has went through this, dark period. The country was shut down and the economy was nationalized, and everything become so repressive. And then we have democratic uprising in 1988, student uprisings, and we had the first elections in 1990s. And after the election, the military didn't transfer power to the winning parties like today. So now we are repeating the history. And instead, the military staged the coup again and started to impose more restrictive policies and systems against the people. So basically, since 1962 to 2010, people were blinded, and we had cut every communications. We were isolated from the war, and everything was restricted by the military, and everything was controlled by the military systems, including education systems, education itself. So the people were brainwashed by the through the educations, just like in North Korea today. So although they have this strong desire to have freedom and democracy, but we never learned what is democracy look like. We never knew or learned what is democracy and how we gonna what does that look like, and what are the democratic values mean, stuff like that. We have never learned, and we were blinded by the military dictatorship, and we are brainwashed. Part of the brainwashed strategy was promoting this Burmese Buddhist nationalism. So basically, making people believe that the country is belong to the Burmese ethnic group, and the country, the entire map is belong to these people, and they are supreme ethnic group over the entire nation. So people have this mindset that this entire country is us, and we are entitled, and this is our entitlement. But the rest, the other ethnic communities live in Myanmar, are subordinate to us. So that attitude has embodied by many people in Myanmar, especially the Burmese Buddhists, the big major ethnic group in Myanmar. What they never taught in the school was that Burma is not a homogeneous country that only belong to the Burma, which is such a diverse, and there are so many ethnic groups and colors and religions. And that wasn't properly addressed, because their intention itself was that to promote Burmese Buddhist nationalism, or even they have a projects of Burmanizations of the country to make the entire country as Burmese. So once the country opened up in 2010 and 11 under 2008 constitution, which was drafted by the military, people started to express their opinion, their feelings, and they started to they started to use the Facebook and social media, and things has changed, and the telephone and everything has become cheaper, so everybody can buy their telephone and use social media regardless of who they are and which background in terms of social status, economic status, or educational status. They can use them, and then they started to express the feeling. And when they see the different versions of Myanmar, Burma, beyond what they are told or what they are taught in the school, they started to feel like they can accept it. They started to feel intimidated and threatened. That was where the military started to use the Buddhist nationalism against Rohingya by using the Rohingya as a threat, showing the Rohingya as outsiders, and seeding the fear of that the Rohingya are a threat to the nations. and it was not just Rohingya, but they used Kachin and other ethnic communities as well. And when they failed, but in the case of Rohingya, they successfully able to implement their agenda, um, and actually conduct the genocidal crimes.
Thank you so much, Wai Wai, for this incredible recap of the history. And I mean, sadly, we see so many parallelism in other parts of the world right now when states of apartheid or simply highly discriminated communities are sadly present in many other countries. Like obviously we are seeing now Israel and Palestine, but also in India there is a more and more Hindu nationalism rising. So it's sadly a big challenge for our time, and I really hope that at least Burma, Myanmar will see the light at the end of the tunnel soon. I want to pick up on a question that we received here in the chat from Maya. It's a very interesting one, asking your opinion on the national unity government of Myanmar. And for those that are following from home, these are government, kind of a shadow government set up outside of the country by pro-democracy activists and leaders that fled obviously Myanmar. And the question in particular is exactly targeting and the minority topic. So what's your opinion about the fact that there are no Rohingya or Muslim person in this national unity government?
Yeah, let's connect to the previous questions. Understanding this complexity in Myanmar, having firsthand experience of the repressions, I never blamed individuals or group. I blamed the systems, so that I don't hate or dislike anybody or groups. So that has been my core value. What I believe is we need to work together to fix the system, and we need to work hard to fix the system. We need dedicated individuals and groups. We need visionary leaders to change the country. We need many visionary leaders, and that's what I have believed in. So as someone who strongly stand on the principle of democracy and human rights, on principle, I support NUG or CRPH or any elected government. If they are not arbitrarily taken power, I support them. But at the same time, we need to hold those organizations and institutions accountable to do the right thing. So right now, what we need in Myanmar is an inclusive democracy and inclusive futures for all. That future include the Rohingya as well. And the NUG government should include Rohingya in their government, as well as an NUG government should acknowledge Rohingyas belonging to the country as a native group, as an ethnic community, which we were before, as well as acknowledge the identity if they're a principled democratic institutions. If they have a just and fair mindset, they must do it. And I hope they're going to do it too.
Thank you for answering this. I wanted to link what you just said, about representation, about inclusion, about making sure that everyone is fully represented, to the work you do, because you founded the Women Peace Network, right? To bring more women, I guess, in peacemaking and positions of power. How is the situation for women right now in Myanmar in the midst of this crisis? Are they being included in whether it's the national unity government? Or else? Are they being represented? And do you feel like women are leading the protests as well?
Of course. So the protest has started by young women leaders like Ethan Zamang, one of our friends from our education center, and many other young women and other colleagues of her. So that was, and then, since then, many women across the country has joined the protests in many forms. The women are forefront of the protest, forefront of the movement today. At the same time, women are targeted and assaulted by the military junta in many, many ways. The women have been targeted for the threat and intimidations with the sexual violence and harassment. And women are detained and tortured in prison and in detention center. Women are arrested without presence of female police officers. Women are being arrested violently, and women have been killed. So the violence against women have been a very concerning situations. The women's rights, women's dignity have ripped away by the military, and this is one of the area that we are focusing on to document and to highlight and to speak up for. Yeah, but the good side is that, as I said, women are forefront of the movement, and women are in the NUG as well. So I thanks to the NUG for including more women in the government.
Thank you, Wai Wai, and I also admire a lot the work of women in struggle for freedom from Myanmar to Belarus and many other that we have seen in recent years. So congratulations for setting up this organization. I have a very concrete question for you that I think there is something that many activists from all over the planet always ask themselves, especially when they live in democratic countries. Do you think that in the particular case of Myanmar, change can only come from within or only from outside, or with both pressures working together? Obviously, my suggestion is that the last path is the most viable, but I would like to hear from you a bit more in detail. What's your hope for that in that sense?
Change happened for many factors, and that include definitely the bottom-up change as well as top-down change. But in the case of Myanmar, I do think it has to come both hand in hand. Right now, we have change within. We have started change within. We have started our movement, and it's getting stronger, and it remains strong. But we're not seeing enough support from the international community. We're not seeing enough pressure from the international community. We're not seeing enough media coverage. And these are essential to help us make the change in Myanmar, because we are dealing with one of the most notorious, brutal military on earth. And we have to remember that we need support and assistance from the world to be able to overcome successfully. Otherwise, we will see more tragedy, more atrocity, mass killing, and arrest. And now, over 700 people have been killed, and over 4,000 people have been arrested. You know, how long we'll have to wait for the world to take actions to prevent losing life, and to save lives, and to end this atrocities and massacre in Myanmar, and to stop the military dictatorship, this junta.
You know, it's insane. Really, I'm shocked and appalled by the fact that, you know, the most we've heard from the UN on this is we strongly condemn. Or, you know, I mean, when you have over 700 people and I think more than 3,000 people that have been arrested and disappeared, it's absolutely insane. So obviously the situation is very big. It's been 100 days now since the coup. People have showed incredible bravery. I mean, I saw today again that across Myanmar, people are on the street protesting despite the fact that they know when they go out that things might turn really, really badly. I like to end those discussions on a hopeful note in general, even though sometimes it's very hard to find it. What is your hope? Like, what are you hoping for when it comes to Myanmar? What realistic outcome that is good for the people of Myanmar can come out now?
I mean, I am hopeful for the commitment and dedications of young people today, our younger generation today. I am hopeful that if we have this level of energy, commitment, and dedications to change the country, we'll be able to change the sea. I'm also hopeful to have like support from some international institutions and human rights organizations and democracy organizations across the world, like yours. You know, I am, and I think if we are more committed and if we try hard, if every one of us try hard, and if we take our own responsibility, our part, if we do our part, we will win this fight. And we need to hold the governments across the world accountable to support our fight and to hold the military criminals accountable as well. Thus, they are supporting our fight, and we will be free from the this brutal dictatorship, and we will, you know, and only then we will be able to achieve justice, get justice for the people, for our fallen heroes, for the people who we lost during the democracy movement within the past 3 months, as well as people who we lost by the genocidal campaigns against the Rohingya and other forms of violence attack against people in ethnic communities, areas, including war crimes and crimes against humanity.
No, I couldn't. I mean, I completely agree. When you see the resolve of people across the world, it has to give hope. So for the people following us both on Zoom and online, I have a request. We like to end those town halls with specific requests. You heard it. You have the power to hold your governments accountable. If you're not in Myanmar and you have actually a choice to not, go on the street, what you have to do is make sure that your government is held accountable. There are still many, many countries that are selling weapons to the military junta that is committing crimes against humanity. Those countries have to stop. We have to put in place arms embargoes. So you have the power to protest, to vote, to sign petitions, and to share on social media, to basically make as much noise as possible to stop weapons from being sold. You have the power to push for sanctions. Same principle. You make as much noise as possible in as many forums as possible to make sure that your government coordinates with others and impose both economic and diplomatic targeted sanctions at the military in power that is responsible for this. You basically have a choice to act or stand on the sidelines of history. So I hope that you'll choose to act and not wait around. I was going to end with this, but I just saw, I think, another question that you might want to take in the chat, which is asking you, could you describe a bit more concretely the united response from the international community that you would love seeing people asking for around the world?
So basically a call to action for activists to pressure the government.
Oh, I just did this at the same time when I saw the question, but I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, of course. So I echo your calls, and that's what we've been calling for. And listen, voices of the people, and support our calls by putting pressure on your governments. And our calls also include ending the military's impunity by holding military leaders accountable criminally through a referral of the situations of Myanmar to the International Criminal Court by the UN Security Council. So that is another important calls that we are making, and so please make sure that you included that call as well when you write letters to the government or raise awareness, because I believed the military coup could only happen because of the decades-long impunity for their international crimes against the ethnic communities and Rohingya and people of Myanmar.
Thank you so much, Wai Wai, for this very clear call to action for our followers, our supporters, our members. On my side, I can just tell them to follow Wai Wai on social media and the Women's Peace Network, because they are a source of inspiration in this fight and many others. And the more we are, the more we support each other, the stronger we can be. So thank you once more, Wai Wai. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you for taking the time to give us this 360-degree overview on the situation in Myanmar. We stand with you and we do our best to support you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And make sure you guys please post your photo with 3-finger salute. That is a symbol of resistance and democracy in Myanmar. We borrowed it from Hunger Games, but this is very powerful tool. Please make sure you take a photo of yourself and show the solidarity with the people of Myanmar and post a photo of yourself.
Yes, we will do. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye-bye.